I was half asleep when the doorbell rang. 12:07 a.m., a time no decent news ever shows up. My wife, Ellen, jolted upright beside me whispering, "Don't answer it." Her voice shook. Before I could ask why, the bell rang again, harder this time, followed by 3 sharp knocks. Then a voice, low, strained, familiar, said, "Open up. I know he's got the keys." My blood ran cold. It was my brother-in-law, Wayne. I swung my legs out of bed, still trying to catch up to what was happening. Wayne wasn't the type to show up anywhere uninvited, let alone pounding on someone's door past midnight. But what bothered me wasn't the knocking. It was Ellen's reaction. She sat frozen on the edge of the bed, her hands clutching the blanket so tightly her knuckles went white. She whispered the same thing again, barely audible now. "Don't answer." I glanced toward the hallway where the front door waited downstairs. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't respond. Her breathing was shallow, shaky. Ellen wasn't a woman who scared easily. 30 years of marriage had shown me that. She'd held her father's hand the night he died. She'd buried 2 siblings. She'd survived a layoff when we were both in our 50s. But right now she looked like someone who'd seen something she wished she could unsee. The knocking returned. Faster, more urgent. "I know you're awake," Wayne shouted. "Just give me the damn keys." I flinched. Ellen squeezed her eyes shut like the words themselves hurt. "Ellen," I said quietly, "what keys is he talking about?" She finally looked at me, and something in her expression made my stomach sink. It was the look people give a doctor before he tells them bad news, already bracing for impact. "John," she said, "please, just don't let him in." That wasn't an answer. Not even close. "Why is he asking for the garage keys?" She swallowed hard. "Because he knows they're not in the drawer where they're supposed to be." I blinked. The keys weren't in the drawer because Ellen had taken them earlier that evening. I remembered watching her do it. She'd slipped them into her robe pocket when she thought I wasn't looking. I almost said something then, but she'd looked so tired I assumed she was just sleepwalking through her nighttime routine. Now I realized she hadn't been tired. She'd been hiding something. "Okay," I said slowly, keeping my voice calm. "Why did you take them?" Before she could answer, Wayne's voice rose to a near snarl. "I'm not leaving without them, Ellen. Don't make this harder." I felt something shift inside me, a mixture of protectiveness and anger. Wayne never spoke to her like that. Not even when he was drunk, and he hadn't touched a drink since the stroke 3 years ago that nearly killed him. He was sober now, clear as glass, and still he sounded desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. I grabbed my robe and headed for the hallway. "John, don't." Ellen reached for my arm, but her grip slipped. "Please, you don't understand." "Then help me understand," I said, "before he breaks the door down." But she didn't. She just closed her eyes again, as if praying for the moment to pass. I stepped into the hallway. Wayne's silhouette was visible through the frosted glass of the front door, broad shoulders, hands planted on either side of the frame. He looked like he'd leaned his head against the door for a moment, because I could see the shadow of his forehead pressed against it. Something about that made my chest tighten. I'd known Wayne for 35 years. I'd never seen him look defeated. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, he lifted his head. "John," he said, the anger suddenly gone. "Just open up. I'm not here to fight." I unlocked the deadbolt, but didn't open the door fully. Just a crack, enough to see his face. His eyes were red, not from drinking but from crying. That scared me more than the knocking. Wayne didn't cry. "Where are the garage keys?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why do you need them?" I countered. He looked over my shoulder toward the stairs. "She told you, didn't she?" "Told me what?" He exhaled shakily. "About what's in the garage." A cold wave washed over me. I didn't know what he was talking about. But the way he said it, like something alive and dangerous was sitting inside my garage, sent a ripple of dread through my spine. Look, he said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. I messed up, I admit that, but I can fix it. I just need those keys. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me so Ellen couldn't hear the next part. The night air was cold enough to make my breath visible. Wayne pulled his jacket tighter and looked down the street, as if expecting someone. That made me even more uneasy. What did you put in my garage, Wayne? His throat bobbed. It's not what I put in there. It's what I took out. I stared at him, not understanding. He looked me directly in the eyes. It's gone, John, and if I don't find it before they do, we're all in trouble. The words hit me like a hammer. Who's they? He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured toward the dark driveway. We don't have time for this. Just open the garage. I'll explain everything. But explanations were the last thing he was offering. His eyes kept darting toward the end of the street. His hands shook, and behind all that panic was something worse. Guilt. Wayne, I said. Evenly, tell me what you took from my garage. He looked toward the house, toward Ellen, even though he couldn't see her. Then, he whispered. Barely audible. I took the box. A chill spread through me. What box? He opened his mouth to answer, but headlights appeared at the far end of our street. Slow, deliberate, crawling toward us like a warning. Wayne paled. John, he said, stepping closer. Give me the keys, now. I didn't move. I'm not asking any more, he said, voice breaking. If you don't open that garage before they reach the driveway, none of us are walking away from tonight. Before I could respond, I heard something behind me, the soft creak of the front door opening. Ellen's voice, shaking. He can't open it, Wayne. He turned toward her. Why? She held up something small and metallic in her trembling hand. The keys, she said, are gone. Ellen stood in the doorway, her robe pulled tight around her, the porch light casting a pale glow across her face. I'd seen her tired, angry, disappointed. 30 years of marriage gives you every expression a person has, but I had never seen this one. Not fear, not guilt, something deeper. 'Tis something like resignation. The kind people have when they've already made a decision they know can't be undone. Wayne stared at her, his voice dropping to a whisper. What do you mean, gone? I got rid of them, she said, her hand trembling around the empty keyring. Hours ago. Wayne's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then he let out a rough exhale and grabbed the railing like he needed it to stay standing. Ellen, please tell me you didn't do something stupid. She flinched. I did what I had to. The headlights creeping toward our house were getting closer now. Slow, steady, too controlled to be casual. It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a late-night delivery. This was deliberate, a vehicle approaching with the confidence of something that didn't care if we saw it coming. Inside, I said quickly. Both of you. Now. Wayne shook his head. You don't understand. I understand enough to know we shouldn't be standing on the porch like sitting ducks. Ellen backed up into the house. Wayne hesitated, looking between the approaching car and the garage door like he was trying to calculate how much time he had left. Then he followed us in, shutting the door behind him. I locked it. Ellen sank onto the nearest chair, staring at her empty hands like she wasn't sure what they belonged to anymore. Wayne paced, running a shaking hand through his hair. I'd seen him stressed plenty of times. Job losses, money trouble, health scares, but this wasn't stress. This was flat-out panic. I kept my voice steady. Start explaining. Now, Wayne stopped pacing. He looked at me, then at Ellen, then back at me. You two need to understand something. If they're coming for that box, they won't stop at a locked garage. They won't stop at anything. What's in the damn box? I snapped. The truth, he said. That tells me nothing, I fired back. He hesitated again. Like part of him wanted to tell us everything, but the rest of him still thought keeping secrets would save us. But the car outside was getting closer. I could feel the low rumble of its engine through the floorboards. I took the box from your garage because I didn't trust her, Wayne finally said, pointing at Ellen. I instinctively stepped between them. Watch your tone. He shook his head. I'm not attacking her, John. I'm telling you the truth. She had possession of that box first. She hid it in your garage. I only found out because I followed her here last Tuesday. Ellen's eyes widened. You what? Wayne ignored her. I recognized the box, the handwriting on it. I knew exactly what it was. I still don't know what it is, I said. Wayne looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on him. Fear mixed with shame. It's evidence. Evidence someone doesn't want out. Evidence that ties back to a thing I did. A long time ago. So my breath caught. What kind of thing? He squeezed his eyes shut, like he needed a moment to force the words out. I didn't kill anyone, if that's what you're thinking, but I was involved in something. Something stupid. Something illegal. And someone recorded it. Kept proof. Blackmail material. For years I thought it was gone. And the box? I asked. It showed up on my doorstep 2 weeks ago, he said. No note, no explanation. Just the box. Then 3 days later, men started watching my house. Parked cars. Windows down. Engines running. No plates. No IDs. No conversation. Just watching. I felt the hairs rise on the back of my neck. So I panicked, he continued. I didn't know who else knew about it. I didn't know if they'd hurt me, or my sister. I didn't know what they wanted, so I took the box to the only place I thought they'd never look. Your house? Why my house? I asked. Because I knew Ellen wouldn't ask questions. I knew you kept the garage locked. I knew you had cameras. I looked at my wife, whose face had gone pale. But, Wayne said, turning toward her, I didn't know she'd open the box. Ellen buried her face in her hands. I didn't mean to. I only wanted to see what you were hiding. So you saw everything, Wayne said. She nodded, silent, and then he continued. You realized whoever wanted the box would trace it to you. That's why she hid it, I murmured. Ellen looked up. I hid it because I thought I could protect us. I didn't think they'd find our house so fast. My mind raced. A box full of blackmail evidence. Something criminal. Someone watching Wayne. Someone who now knew the box had moved. Someone now parked outside our house. So where is it? Wayne snapped. Where's the box now? Ellen swallowed hard. I gave it to someone. Wayne's face twisted. Who? She hesitated. Someone I trust. Who? He shouted. Ellen looked at me as if asking for permission to say something she'd been holding on to for years. It doesn't matter who, Wayne snarled. What matters is whether you gave it to the right person. Because if they come in here tonight and don't find that box, the doorbell rang. All three of us stopped breathing. One long ring, then silence. No one answers, I whispered. We crept to the hall. Wayne pressed himself against the wall. Ellen clutched my arm. I peered through the peephole. A man stood outside. Dark jacket. No expression. He held a phone in one hand and in the other something that made my blood freeze. A copy of our garage key. Someone had made one. John? Wayne whispered. Who is it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The man looked straight at the peephole. Straight at me. And then he lifted the key. Not slowly. Not threateningly. Just matter-of-factly. Like he knew I'd be watching. He leaned forward and spoke. His voice low and unmistakably calm. You're missing something. Let us in. We don't want trouble. Let us in. Plural, as if on cue. 2 more figures stepped into view. One on each side of the porch, just outside the edges of the light. I stepped back from the door. We need to go, Wayne whispered. Right now. Go where? I demanded. Anywhere but here. Ellen's voice cracked. They won't leave without the box. Which is why we need to get to the person I gave it to, she said. Who? Wayne pleaded. Ellen closed her eyes, bracing herself. My sister, she whispered. Wayne's face drained of color. You gave it to Laura? The man outside jiggled the front doorknob. Ellen let out a trembling breath. I had to, she said, because she's the only one who knows what really happened to you. The doorknob twisted harder, and suddenly, everything I thought I understood about Wayne, about Ellen, about our quiet suburban life, all cracked open. I stood there in the dim hallway, my hands still shaking from what I'd found in the toolbox, trying to breathe normally, even as my entire chest felt like it had caved in. The photo of my wife, my Margaret, and that little girl standing beside her, both smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world, kept flashing in my mind. The date scrawled on the back, the handwriting that didn't look like hers, and the fact that Margaret had never once mentioned a girl, not in all the years we'd been married, not in the long, painful talks after her diagnosis, not ever. I heard footsteps from the living room, slow, uneven, like someone who wasn't sure if they were welcome. You good? Mike's voice came from around the corner, rough and cautious. You were in there for a while. I slipped the photo back into the toolbox before he could see it. Yeah, I said, trying to sound steady. I'm fine, lost track of time. He stepped closer, peering at me, like he didn't believe a word of it. You look pale. Well, I said, forcing a weak laugh. Finding someone hiding in your basement tends to do that. He didn't laugh. Instead, he glanced toward the back door again, the one he'd been so jumpy about. We need to talk, David. But not here. Not with everything going on. Then start talking now, I said. I'm done with secrets. His jaw flexed. For a moment, he looked like he was about to argue, but then he sighed and rubbed his face. Fine, but you're not going to like it. Try me. He hesitated a beat longer, then pointed to the couch. Sit, because once I start, you're not going to want to be standing. We sat across from each other. Him hunched forward, elbows on his knees, me leaning back, trying to look calmer than I felt. The house was too quiet. I could hear the old wall clock ticking, like it was marking the end of something. What I'm about to tell you, he said slowly. I promised Margaret I'd never say. Not unless she couldn't anymore. The way he said couldn't made something cold settle in my stomach. What does that mean? He swallowed hard. You know she's been confused lately, forgetting things, losing time. I nodded, though it felt like a knife twisting. The doctors warned that would happen. He leaned back, staring up at the ceiling. Yeah, but this isn't just that. This started before the diagnosis. Years before, actually. She told me years ago that if anything ever happened, if she started slipping in a way that made her unsafe, I was supposed to keep an eye on her. And on you. On me? I frowned. For what? That's the thing. He lowered his voice. She didn't tell me everything. She only said there were things she didn't want resurfacing. Things she hoped would stay buried. I stared at him, my pulse hammering. What kinds of things? He hesitated again, and I could see the war going on behind his eyes. I don't know the details. She wouldn't tell me. Just said that you were the only one who couldn't know. The words hit me like a punch. Me? Why would she hide anything from me? And what does that have to do with a guy hiding in my basement? He shrugged helplessly. I don't know. But whoever he is, he knew her. That much is obvious. I shook my head, anger and confusion twisting together. Margaret doesn't know anyone who would break into a house. David, he said quietly. Are you sure? I opened my mouth to respond, to insist that yes, of course I was sure, then stopped. The photo, the child, the date that didn't make sense, the way she'd been locking the garage door every night, even before the diagnosis got worse, the phone calls she'd hide from me, the times she'd stand at the window at night, staring at the driveway like she was waiting for someone. Mike, I said slowly, how long have you known she was hiding things? He rubbed a hand over his beard, Since about 6 months before her diagnosis. 6 months, that would have been around the time she started insisting we move the contents of the attic into the garage, claiming she wanted things closer for sorting. Except she never sorted a thing. She just locked the door. And you didn't think to tell me any of this. He looked miserable, I promised her, David. She made me swear on her mother's grave. She said she'd explain eventually, but then the diagnosis came. And well, you know how she got. I closed my eyes, trying to slow my breathing. Everything in my life, everything I thought I knew about my wife, suddenly felt built on sand. Did she ever mention the girl? I asked without thinking. His head snapped up. What girl? I cursed under my breath. I hadn't meant to let that slip yet. I found a picture. Margaret with a girl. It looked recent. His brows knit together. That doesn't make any sense. Margaret doesn't have a... He stopped. Unless what? He stood abruptly and began pacing. There was a time, maybe 4 years ago, when she disappeared for 2 days. She told me she'd gone to a spa with a friend, but she came back different, jumpy, on edge. I asked what happened, but she shut down. 4 years ago. That would have been around the time we were struggling the most, when Margaret had first started showing signs of something being wrong, but we didn't know what. She'd insisted everything was fine, that she just needed space. Did she ever talk about going somewhere else? I asked. Or someone else? He shook his head. No, but there was one thing. One night she called me hysterical. Said someone had shown up at the house. She said she handled it and told me not to come over, and I listened, like an idiot. Handled it. How? I asked. He looked at me helplessly. She never said. I felt a tight pressure building behind my ribs, a feeling halfway between dread and clarity. Mike, if she was hiding something big, the man in the basement, could he be connected? Maybe, he said. But there's something else you need to know. I braced myself. What? He walked to the front window, peeking through the curtains. He wasn't alone. A chill shot down my spine. What do you mean? Mike pointed outside. There's a car across the street. It's been there since before you got home. I moved beside him. The street lamp cast just enough light for me to make out the silhouette of a sedan parked at the curb. Engine off. Windows dark. You think he's watching the house? I whispered. I think, Mike said. You and I need to figure out what Margaret was mixed up in, before whoever's in that car decides they're done waiting. I stared at the dark shape of the vehicle, my mind racing with questions I wasn't ready to face, and then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. From an unknown number. I need to talk to you about your wife. Please don't involve the police. I'm begging you. I stared at the screen, my blood suddenly cold. David, Mike said quietly. What is it? I couldn't answer. Not yet. Because I had a sinking feeling the real story was only beginning. I stared at the text message so long the screen dimmed, forcing me to tap it awake again. The words didn't change. The initial "look" sat there, like a bruise spreading across my vision. Mike leaned in, trying to catch a glimpse, but I turned slightly so he couldn't see. David? He asked. Again, more impatient this time. What happened? I swallowed hard. Nothing. Wrong number. Yeah, he said, narrowing his eyes, and I'm the Queen of England. I didn't answer. I couldn't. A pressure was building in my chest, something that felt like a premonition I wasn't ready for. I opened the message again, staring at the way the sender had written, your wife, as if the person knew me, but maybe not well enough to feel comfortable using her name, or maybe they couldn't bring themselves to write it. A soft thud came from the basement. Mike and I froze. We looked at each other, and for the first time that night I saw something in his face I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not frustration, not annoyance. Actual fear. What was that? I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. He moved first. stepping quietly toward the basement door, listening, head cocked. I followed, the air in the house suddenly feeling heavier, like we'd walked into a room filled with someone else's breath. Another thud. Faint, but unmistakable. "Is he awake?" I whispered. Mike shook his head. He was barely conscious. "No way he's moving that fast." "Then who?" He held up a hand. "Stay quiet." We stood still, barely breathing. A dragging sound echoed from below. Slow, uneven, like someone pulling themselves across concrete. My stomach dropped. "That's not him," I whispered. Mike nodded once, grimly. He reached for the doorknob, but his hand hovered. "You still got your bat?" Upstairs, in the hall closet, leaning behind coats we never wore anymore, was my old aluminum baseball bat. I'd last used it when the neighbor's dog kept digging under our fence. That felt like another lifetime ago. "I'll get it," I said. He grabbed my arm before I could move. "Be careful." I left him by the basement door, hurried to the closet, and pulled the bat out. My hands shook so badly the metal felt slippery. I took a slow breath and forced myself back to the hallway. Mike opened the basement door just an inch and listened. His breath caught. He looked at me, eyes wide. "There are two voices," he whispered. "One of them definitely isn't the guy we found." A cold sweat broke across my back. "Are they talking?" "More like struggling." I could hear it now too. A strained grunt. A muffled word I couldn't make out. Then a scraping sound. "I'm calling the police," I said quietly. Mike's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "No, not yet." "You're out of your mind," I hissed. "Someone else is in our basement. And Margaret made me promise." "I don't care about your promises," I snapped. My voice cracked, and I immediately lowered it, terrified the people downstairs might hear. "We need help." "No," he said firmly, his voice low but intense. "You don't understand. If we call them, everything Margaret hid gets exposed. Everything she tried to protect. Everything she fought for." I stared at him. "Mike, my wife is losing her memory. But you're talking like she was some kind of—" He cut me off. "She protected you, David. Even when you didn't know it. Even when she didn't trust herself anymore." I shook my head. "Protect me from what?" "From them," he whispered. Another thud. Louder this time. Made us both jump. I gripped the bat tighter. "If you know something, tell me. Now." But before he could answer, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "Please, David. You're in danger." I didn't want it to come to this. "Check the garage." My breath locked in my throat. "What is it now?" Mike asked, eyes flicking between my phone and my face. The garage. The one door Margaret had always locked without fail. The same garage she wouldn't let me reorganize, wouldn't let me clean, wouldn't let me near some of the old boxes stacked against the far wall. I closed the message and pocketed the phone. "Mike," I said, "I need to look in the garage." He stiffened. "No, absolutely not." "Why?" "Because that was the one place she told me to keep shut if things ever started to fall apart. And things are falling apart," I shot back. He hesitated, jaw tightening. "I'm telling you, that's not where we should be right now." A sharp crash from the basement made the decision for us. Something or someone had knocked over the metal shelving down there. Mike backed away from the door. "Screw it. Garage first." Goal. We hurried to the garage entrance at the end of the hallway, moving fast, but as quietly as possible. My pulse thudded in my ears. I kept glancing behind us, expecting someone to come stumbling up the basement stairs. The garage door was locked, as always. The deadbolt stiff. I turned it slowly, trying not to make noise. Mike hovered behind me, whispering, "David," about the garage, and "If there's something in there you don't like, remember Margaret wasn't herself when she—" I cut him off. "Then who was she?" He didn't answer. Maybe he didn't know. I flicked on the light. The garage looked normal, Boxes stacked along one wall. Old tools, gardening supplies, Margaret's bike hanging from the rafters. But something felt off. The air felt disturbed, like someone had been in there recently, like movement still lingered in the space. I stepped inside. "Stay close," Mike whispered. We crossed toward the far wall, where Margaret kept the oldest boxes, ones she insisted were personal, and not ready to go through yet. Boxes dated back to before I met her. I reached for the top one. Mike grabbed my arm. "David, stop." His voice held a seriousness I'd never heard before. I looked at him, and for the first time he actually looked older, weighed down, exhausted. "Before you open anything," he said softly, "you need to answer a question, and I need you to be honest." I nodded slowly. "What question?" He took a breath. "Has Margaret ever mentioned a woman named Leah?" The name hit me like a shove. Leah, the initial in the text message. "Leah." "No," I whispered. "Never." Mike exhaled, defeated. "Then this is worse than I thought." Before I could ask what he meant, something slid out from between the two boxes, an envelope, dusty, as if it had been wedged deep inside for years. My name was written on the front, in Margaret's handwriting, but shakier. Older, almost desperate. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A letter. I unfolded it. The first line drained the blood from my face. "David, if you're reading this, then she found you, and you cannot trust her." Behind me, Mike whispered, "Oh my God," but I wasn't looking at him. Because at that moment, someone knocked on the garage door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, followed by a soft female voice calling my name. "David? It's me. Let me in." The voice on the other side of the garage door was calm. Too calm, almost rehearsed. "David, open the door, please." I froze. Mike did too. Neither of us breathed. The metal of the bat felt slick in my palms. That voice was familiar. Not perfectly. Not like hearing Margaret call from the kitchen or from the bedroom in the old days, but familiar enough that my mind scrambled to place it. "Don't," Mike whispered. His face drained of color. "Do not open that door." I swallowed. "Who is that?" He shook his head, eyes fixed on the door. "If I'm right, someone you were never supposed to meet." Another knock. Firmer this time. "I know you're in there," the voice said. "I can hear you, David. Just let me explain." Something about the way she said "explain" made a cold tremor run through me. Not the word, but the tone. Like she'd practiced it for years, waiting for this exact moment. I stepped back from the door. Heart pounding. "Mike," I whispered. "Tell me what's going on." He shook his head, wiping a hand across his mouth. "I can't, not yet. I need to be sure." "Sure of what?" "That it's really her." A soft laugh drifted from behind the door. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It wasn't mocking. It was knowing. "Michael," the woman said. "I hear you. You don't have to hide." Mike flinched like she'd slapped him. I stared at him. "She knows your voice." He didn't look at me. Yeah, she would. The garage fell silent. I could hear only our breathing, shallow and uneven. Then a quiet scraping sound started outside, like someone sliding their hand slowly across the metal door. "I'm going to leave something for you," the woman said, her voice almost gentle. "You don't have to open it now, but you will." Eventually, Mike pulled me behind the workbench, hiding us from the door's small windows. "What are you doing?" I hissed. "Staying alive," he whispered. There was another soft sound, like something being placed on the ground, then footsteps backing away. Slow, unhurried, the kind of steps from someone completely confident they'd be back. Finally, the footsteps faded. After a long, agonizing stretch of silence, I whispered, "Is she gone?" Mike didn't answer right away. He crept to the tiny square window at the back of the garage, peered out through the smudged glass, then let out a shaky breath. She's gone. My muscles loosened all at once, leaving me unsteady. Who was that? I asked. Mike leaned against the wall, rubbing his face. I hoped I was wrong. God, I hoped I was wrong. That's not an answer. He looked at me, and for the first time that night, something like grief flickered in his eyes. Leah, he said quietly. I think that was Leah. The name sounded wrong in the air. Wrong because it didn't belong in this house, in this garage, in my life. Wrong because Margaret had never once spoken it in 35 years of marriage. But the text message. Check the garage, the initial lol, the letter. Who is she? I asked again. Mike hesitated. Your wife's sister. I blinked. Margaret doesn't have a sister. She did, he whispered. Once, my stomach turned. What does that mean? Once, he sighed. Leah disappeared before you met Margaret. Your wife never talked about her. I thought she'd passed away, or wanted nothing to do with the family. Margaret shut down whenever the name came up, so eventually I stopped asking. I shook my head. But why disappear? Why come back now? That's the part I'm still trying to figure out, Mike said. I looked down at the letter, still in my hands, the handwriting trembling across the page. The words blurred for a moment before refocusing. Then she found you, and you cannot trust her. I read it again and again. Each time the meaning dug deeper into me. Margaret wrote this, I whispered. She was warning me. Yeah, Mike murmured. Looks like she was. But warning me about what? About Leah? He nodded slowly. And why would her sister be dangerous? Mike hesitated. There are things Margaret never told you, David. Things she never told me either, but when her memory started slipping, certain pieces came out. I stared at him. Pieces. He looked like he didn't want to continue, but something in my face must have pushed him. Margaret wasn't just forgetting daily things, he said. She was remembering things. Old things. Buried things. And sometimes when she got confused, she said too much. She'd look at me like she expected me to fix something I didn't know existed. What things, Mike? My voice cracked. He took a breath. She kept saying she had to protect you. That Leah would come back one day. That she had to hide the document before it was too late. The word document hit me like a strike to the chest. What document? I asked. He shook his head. She never said, just that if Leah found it, everything would fall apart. She said it was the reason her family... He stopped himself. The reason her family... What? I pushed. The reason her family fell apart in the first place. My pulse thundered. Mike, Margaret's parents died in a car accident. That's what she told you, he whispered. But that's not what actually happened. I stared at him, speechless. He looked away. I didn't believe her. I thought it was confusion, delusion, the disease. But now, a sudden pounding erupted from inside the house. 3 heavy thuds like someone had slammed a door or fallen against something. Mike and I snapped our heads toward the interior door. That came from upstairs, I whispered, or someone came in through the front. Mike said grimly. We exchanged a glance. That ready? He asked. As ready as it'll ever be. We moved back toward the entry door, inching it open just enough to hear. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I felt my heart beat in my throat. Then, a creak. Not from above. From below. The basement. They're moving, Mike whispered. My blood ran cold, and now someone else is in the house. I whispered. He nodded, jaw tight. We have to go back in. We don't have a choice. We need to know who it is, I said, and what they want. As we stepped back into the hallway, my phone buzzed again, another message from the same number. This time only 5 words, you opened the wrong door. I stared at the message. You opened the wrong door, until the words seemed to pulse on the screen. Wrong door. It didn't make sense. Mike leaned over my shoulder. Reading it too, he muttered something under his breath. Something sharp and low, like a curse he didn't want me to hear. "David," he whispered. "We need to move. Now." "Wait." My voice shook. "What does that mean? Wrong door?" He grabbed my arm. "We'll figure it out later. Someone's inside." A floorboard creaked from the living room. A slow, deliberate creak, the kind that isn't an accident. The kind that says someone is standing still, listening. We both froze. The house felt different suddenly, smaller. Too quiet, like it was holding its breath along with us. Mike motioned for me to stay behind him as he stepped into the hallway, creeping forward with the bat raised. I followed close behind, my heart hammering hard enough to blur my hearing. The shadows seemed deeper, stretched unnaturally across the walls. This was the house I'd lived in for 30 years, and yet I felt like I didn't recognize a single inch of it. We reached the living room entrance. "The lights were off," I whispered. "They're in there," Mike nodded. "Stay behind me." He stepped inside. Bat raised. Then, a quiet voice floated out from the darkness. "David?" My breath caught in my throat. Because I knew that voice, and not in the vague, haunting way I'd recognized the woman outside the garage. No, this voice was burned into me. It was Margaret. Except, it couldn't be. She was supposed to be asleep at the memory care center 2 miles away. I took a step forward, despite Mike's hand flying out to stop me. "Margaret?" I whispered. Something shifted in the dark. A figure moved near the armchair, slowly. Too slowly, Mike hissed. "David, don't." But I stepped into the room anyway, my chest tightening painfully. Then the lights flicked on, and I froze. The woman sitting in the chair looked like Margaret. Her face, her eyes, her frail hands clenched on the armrests. Every detail, except she looked younger. 10 years younger, at least, her hair darker, her posture straighter, her eyes clearer than they'd been in years. Too clear, like she was studying me, not my wife. A copy, a memory, a ghost wearing her skin. "David," she said softly, "I'm glad you finally opened the garage. You needed to see the letter." Mike grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "David, that's not her. Don't go closer." The woman smiled faintly. "Michael, still pretending you're the protector." "Shut up," Mike snapped. I stared at her, my throat closing. "Who are you?" Her smile widened. "You still don't know? Even after the letter?" I didn't answer. She tilted her head. "She didn't tell you about me?" Mike stepped between us. "You're not supposed to be here." The woman sighed, almost pityingly. "And yet, here I am." I forced myself to speak. "Where is Margaret?" "Safe," the woman said, "for now. But that depends on what you do next." I felt my legs weaken. "What does that mean?" She looked amused. "It means she's in less danger than you are." Mike raised the bat. Muscles tensed. "One more step and I swear." She lifted a hand. Not threateningly, almost gently. "Michael, you should sit down before you make another mistake." He didn't move. She exhaled softly. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Basement." The word hit me like ice water. "Don't," Mike warned her. She looked at him. "He's going to find out anyway." I stepped forward. "What's in the basement?" She smiled again. Slow, controlled, predictable. Like she knew exactly what I would ask before I asked it. "You hear them," she said. "The man you found, the one Margaret hid. He was never alone." Shivered. "We heard 2 voices." She nodded. "Because someone else has been down there with him. Someone Margaret separated from the world a long time ago." I swallowed. "Separated, protected," she corrected. "Controlled, contained." A pause. "But you opened the wrong door, David." My pulse hammered. "What wrong door?" "The garage," she said quietly. "Margaret never wanted that to be opened first. She wanted you to start with the basement, to see what she hid from you. I looked at Mike. His face had turned gray. Mike, what is she talking about? He shook his head, jaw clenched. David, don't listen to her. She lies, always has, always will. The woman's voice softened. You really never told him? After everything? Mike didn't look at her, and that silence told me more than any explanation could. I turned back to the woman. Where's my wife? Tell me where she is. She blinked, slowly. Alive. Safe. Confused. But alive. And you expect me to believe that? I snapped. I expect you to listen, she said. Calm as a still lake, because tonight you are standing between two truths. Margaret wanted you to find her secret in the basement before she lost herself completely. But you chose the garage instead. By accident, I said. There are no accidents, she whispered. Something shifted upstairs, another creak. Mike stiffened. There's someone else in the house. The woman nodded. Yes? Who? He demanded. She didn't answer. Mike stepped closer, bat still raised. Where is Margaret? The woman looked at him, unblinking, and said, Where she put him. My blood iced over. Put who? She finally stood up. Her movements were controlled, graceful, too sure of a body that looked borrowed. She met my eyes. Your brother, my breath, left me in a single, broken exhale. My what? She nodded. She didn't tell you. Of course she didn't. Behind me. Mike whispered. Don't listen to her, David. Please. Your brother. The woman repeated softly. The one Margaret never wanted you to know existed. The one she kept locked away. The one who's been in your basement far longer than the man you found tonight. My vision swam. No, no. It wasn't possible. I stumbled back, shaking. I don't have a brother. The woman's eyes softened, almost tender. That's what she wanted you to believe. Another loud crash erupted from the basement. Then a voice, raspy, unfamiliar yet terrifyingly close, yelled up the stairs. David. She's back. Mike dropped the bat. The woman smiled, and the lights flickered. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied with a faint, trembling buzz. Mike scrambled to pick up the bat, but his hands shook so violently he nearly dropped it again. I couldn't move. That voice from the basement. My name shouted by a stranger who knew it with too much familiarity, still echoed through the house like it had lodged itself in the walls. She's back. Back. The woman, the copy of Margaret, leaned one shoulder against the doorway, watching my face as if my reaction were the entertainment she'd been waiting for all night. You should hurry, she murmured. He's been waiting a very long time. I swallowed hard. My mouth was too dry to form words. Mike grabbed my arm. David, don't go down there. I'm begging you. I shook him off. You know something? You've known for years. My voice came out hoarse, restrained, cracking at the edges. Tell me the truth. I can't, he said. You will. His eyes darted toward the basement door in the hallway, as if expecting something or someone to appear in it any second. Then he said, If you go down there, everything you think you know about Margaret, about your life, it's going to rip apart, and there's no putting it back once that happens. The woman gave a soft, almost affectionate laugh. He's trying to protect you from the truth. He always has. Shut up, Mike snapped. Then he turned back to me, gripping my shoulders. David, he said, your wife is sick. She hasn't been herself for years, long before the memory issues started. And she did things she never wanted you to know about. Things I thought were buried for good. Things I thought would stay buried. But a man is dead in my basement, I whispered. He pressed his lips together. Yes. And that woman, I pointed at her. She looks like Margaret, but she's not. What is she? Mike didn't answer. The woman did, I'm what she wished she still was, she said softly. The version of herself she showed the world while she hid the rest behind locked doors and lies. I trembled. Where is my real wife? She stepped closer, her expression softening with something that looked eerily like sympathy. She's where she put him. Where she put them both. Another crash thundered from the basement. Louder this time, followed by pounding footsteps against the wooden stairs. Something or someone was coming up. Mike swore under his breath. We need to block the door, he said. Move, David. He pushed me toward the hallway. But I dug my heels in. I need answers first. You need to stay alive first. He shot back. The pounding stopped. Complete silence fell. So sudden, so thick, every hair on my body stood on end. Then a voice, low, ragged, and disturbingly calm, spoke through the crack of the basement door. David, open the door. I felt my knees wobble. Mike stood in front of me, raising the bat again. Don't open anything. The woman's eyes glinted with amusement. You're out of time. The basement doorknob twisted. Once, twice, slowly. Deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. Mike raised the bat higher, muscles trembling. If he comes through, run. The knob clicked, but the door didn't open. Instead, the voice behind it whispered, Is she in there with you? The woman smiled. She wants you to let him out, she said. But you need to decide whose truth you're ready to hear first. I don't understand, I said. My voice barely a breath. You will, she whispered. If you choose the right door this time. I shook my head. What door? She looked around the house, my house, as if she were seeing it for the first time. Then she walked past me, her fingers brushing lightly across my arm. In this house, she murmured, every door is the wrong door. That's why Margaret never let you open any of them. She moved toward the front entrance. Mike snapped. Hey, where are you going? To get her, the woman said. Her who? I demanded. She paused in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the dim outside light. Margaret, she said simply. The real one. Before she forgets entirely why she locked your brother away. Before I could react, she stepped out into the night and disappeared into the darkness. Mike grabbed my shoulders again, demanding my attention. David, listen to me. I know this is impossible to believe, but you don't have a brother. The man in the basement knows my name. He could have read it from something down there. He said she's back. Mike hesitated, but only for a second. And that second told me everything. You know who he is, I whispered. He closed his eyes. I know who Margaret thought he was. What does that mean? He opened his eyes. She wasn't well, not even before her diagnosis. There were signs I should have caught. Fixations, paranoia, delusions about things she claimed she remembered but couldn't prove. And you didn't tell me? She begged me not to. He said me not to, he said. She said you weren't strong enough to hear it. And she was right. Rage surged through me. You don't get to decide that. You don't know what she was capable of, David. You don't remember what it was like before you met her. That doesn't make sense. No, he cut in sharply. It doesn't make sense because she didn't want it to. She wanted you clean, untouched, forgetting everything before her. My pulse hammered. What are you talking about? The basement door shook violently. Both of us jerked toward it. The wood splintered near the top hinge. Mike raised the bat. David, he said, we have to go. Now, but I couldn't move. Because in my mind, unbidden and blurry, a memory surfaced. A hallway. A woman screaming. A child crying. A locked door. I staggered back, clutching my head. Mike, what did she do? He looked at me with a pain so raw, it rooted me to the floor. She tried to erase him from you, he said. And she almost succeeded. The basement door cracked loudly. Once, like a gunshot, and a long, jagged splinter slashed down the frame. Something pushed from the other side. Hard, Mike screamed. "Run!" I did. I bolted down the hall, past the kitchen, toward the back exit, but halfway there I froze, because standing in the shadow by the back door was another figure. A woman, not the copy, not Margaret. Someone else. Someone older. Her voice was barely audible. "David, you don't remember me." My blood froze. She stepped into the kitchen light, enough for me to see her face, and I recognized her instantly. I hadn't seen that face since childhood. She whispered, "I'm your mother." My legs gave out. I stumbled backward, barely catching myself on the counter. My mother, standing in my kitchen, alive. After all these years, I hadn't seen her since I was a boy. I'd thought she died in that fire, the accident the papers said had claimed her life. But here she was, breathing, watching me like I'd never left her side. "Mom," my voice was barely a whisper. How is this possible?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were clouded with something I couldn't name. Sadness, fear, relief, all at once. She took a slow step closer. "David, you shouldn't have come back tonight," she said, voice trembling. "You shouldn't have let them pull you into this." I shook my head, trying to process her words. "Pull me into what? What's happening? Where's Margaret?" She exhaled shakily, looking past me toward the basement. "She's trying to fix things before it's too late. But she's not strong enough. Not alone." Mike grabbed my shoulder from behind, his grip urgent. "David, I told you, don't trust anyone, especially not her." I spun toward him. "Mike, she's my mother." Mike's expression didn't change. He just shook his head slowly. "Not the mother you think she is. Not the one you remember. She's complicated, dangerous." The words hit me like a punch. My knees threatened to buckle. "Dangerous. Yes," he said. "Margaret's sister, the copy we saw, the man in the basement. None of this is random. Your family has secrets you don't even understand yet, and now your mother is back in the middle of it." I felt dizzy. I don't understand anything anymore. My mother's voice cut through the chaos. Low but urgent. "David, listen to me. You have to go to the basement. You have to face what she's hiding." I swallowed hard. "She Margaret?" "Yes," Mom said. "She didn't want you to see it. But you need to, before anyone else does." Mike's face went pale. "David, do you hear yourself? Your mother is telling you to go into the basement where someone could kill you." "I don't care," I said, shaking my head. "I need answers. I need Margaret. I need the truth." My mother stepped closer, placing a trembling hand on my arm. "David, you're stronger than you know, and you have to trust yourself. Only you can fix this." I looked into her eyes and saw something raw, desperate, and familiar. Something I'd longed for all my life. Protection, guidance, clarity. Mike grabbed my arm again. "David, if you go down there, I can't stop what happens. You have to promise me. Promise you'll be careful." I nodded, more to calm him than myself. "I promise." He didn't speak, just stepped aside, allowing me to move toward the basement door. The hallway felt impossibly long. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every shadow seemed to stretch and flicker with menace. My hands shook as I reached for the doorknob. The basement door had splintered from earlier, the wood weakened and raw. I pushed it open slowly. Darkness swallowed me. "David." The voice from earlier echoed, rasping, desperate. "You shouldn't have come." I raised the bat Mike had given me. My mother's words rang in my ears. "You're stronger than you know, one step at a time." I descended the stairs. The first thing I saw was the man, the one we had found earlier, slumped against the wall. He was gagged now, tied even tighter than before, his eyes wide with fear and recognition. Then I saw the second figure, smaller, younger, a girl. And then, Margaret. She stood behind the child, holding a worn, folded envelope in her hands. Her face was pale, terrified, but she held herself with a strange strength I hadn't seen in years. "David," she whispered, "you shouldn't have followed the letter." I froze. "Margaret, what is all this? Who are these people?" She swallowed, shaking. "The man, the girl, they were part of it, part of something I was trying to hide, something I never wanted you to see." I stepped closer. "Hide? From me? From everyone?" She nodded, tears streaking her face. "Yes, because if you knew, if anyone knew, it would destroy everything. I thought I could protect you. I thought I could fix it alone." The girl moved slightly, looking at me with wide, fearful eyes. "Mom?" Margaret glanced down at her. "Not now. Be quiet." My mother's voice echoed upstairs in my memory, steady and clear. "Only you can fix this." I took a deep breath. "Then tell me. Start at the beginning." Margaret's lips trembled. "The beginning is when everything went wrong." I gripped the bat tighter. "I'm listening." She exhaled sharply, as if steeling herself. "Your mother, she didn't die. Not in the fire. She left. She left to protect you. And the rest of us. But when she went, Leah, my sister, she took advantage. She took control of things I shouldn't have allowed. And I promised I would fix it." I blinked. "Leah? You mean the woman at the door?" Margaret nodded. "She came back last week. She's trying to undo what I did. She's trying to take the girl and the man. And if she succeeds, everything we've hidden, everything I've protected, is gone." The man on the floor shifted, groaning. He tugged against his bindings. "I don't understand," I whispered. Why would you keep him here?" Margaret's hands shook as she clutched the envelope. "He knew too much. About things that should never have been known. And the girl, she's innocent. I couldn't let them, either of them, fall into Leah's hands." A loud crash upstairs made us all jump. "Leah's here," Margaret said softly, eyes wide with fear. "She's inside the house. She's coming for us, and she's not alone." The basement air felt heavier, cold, oppressive. The weight of secrets, lies, and decades of hidden family history pressed down on me. I tightened my grip on the bat. "Then we fight." Margaret looked at me, a mix of hope and terror in her eyes. "David, this isn't just about protecting us. This is about undoing what I couldn't fix. You're the only one who can." I swallowed hard, fear and determination colliding in my chest. "Then show me, tell me what to do." Her lips pressed together, holding back a tremor. "First we deal with the man. Then we deal with Leah." I nodded, my heart beat deafening in my ears. And as I stepped closer to the man, I realized this night would change everything, because the truth had been waiting for me in the basement all along, and it was only beginning to reveal itself. I stood in the basement, bat raised, staring at the man slumped against the wall. His eyes widened when he saw me, a mixture of fear and recognition. I took a slow step closer, forcing myself to focus. The dim light revealed the bindings on his wrists and ankles, the gag across his mouth. He had been trapped here far too long. Margaret stepped forward, her hands shaking, the envelope clutched tightly to her chest. "David, you have to untie him. You have to make a choice." I froze. "Make a choice?" "Yes," she whispered. "Because if you don't, Leah will win. She will take the girl, him, and everything we've tried to protect. You're the only one who can stop her." Mike stood behind me, bat ready, jaw tight. "David, think about this. Whoever he is, whoever she is, this is a trap. I don't trust her, and I don't trust you to make the right move without getting hurt." I shook my head. "Mike, I don't have a choice. Not anymore." I stepped closer to the man, and with shaking hands, untied the ropes around his wrists. He groaned softly, rubbing the blood from his skin where the ropes had cut. His eyes flicked toward Margaret, then to me, and I caught a flash of recognition. "You know me," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "You're David, Margaret's husband. I didn't think you'd find me." "Why was I supposed to find you?" I asked, my voice low. He hesitated, swallowing hard. "Because she needed someone to save us. She couldn't do it alone. Leah, she's dangerous. Worse than anything you've imagined. She'll stop at nothing." Margaret stepped closer, placing a hand on my arm. "It's true. Leah has been planning this for years. She wanted control of everything, and if she ever knew he was here, she'd destroy him. And the girl too." I swallowed, the weight of the night pressing down on me. The girl shifted, hiding slightly behind Margaret. Her eyes were wide, terrified. She was too young to understand, but she already sensed the danger in the house, in our family, in the history I had never known. Mike's voice broke through my thoughts. "David, Leah isn't going to wait. She's inside this house right now, and she's coming for you, for them, for everything." Margaret had tried to protect. I took a deep breath. Then we stopped her. The sound of footsteps above us made every nerve in my body scream. Leah was moving quickly, precise, deliberate. That's weird. She knew this house better than anyone, had probably memorized every creak, every shadow. Margaret pressed the envelope into my hands. "Inside, everything you need to know is here. Read it. Then decide who to trust. But hurry. She's close." I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were letters, photographs, and documents. Everything Margaret had hidden, secrets about her family, her sister, the man in front of me, even notes about the girl. Each page revealed pieces of the puzzle I'd never known, each fact twisting my stomach into knots. Mike grabbed my shoulder. "David, we have to move." I looked up, heart hammering. "She's upstairs. She's coming." A loud crash sounded from the floor above. Then a scream, a terrifying guttural scream that chilled me to the bone. Leah, she had found us. Margaret's voice shook. "David, use what I gave you. You're the only one who can protect all of us." "Don't hesitate," I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The man in front of me, Margaret's secret, the one she had kept hidden for years, looked at me. "You have to believe me," he said. "I've been trapped here for her safety. For yours, if Leah finds us, she'll kill us all." Mike raised the bat. "David, on my mark." The footsteps above grew louder. Each step felt like it was shaking the entire house. I gripped the bat tighter, my mind racing through every page of the envelope, every piece of information Margaret had entrusted to me. And then she appeared. Leah, at the top of the basement stairs. Her face pale, eyes wild, hair loose around her shoulders. She stared down at us with a cold fury that made my blood run ice. "David," she hissed, "I've been waiting a long time for this." The man in the basement tensed. The girl pressed herself closer to Margaret. Mike stepped forward, bat raised, ready to strike. I forced myself to stay calm. "Leah, this ends tonight." Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, David, it's only just beginning." She lunged. Mike swung the bat, but Leah was too fast. She dodged, landing at the bottom of the stairs with impossible grace. The man behind me tried to scramble to safety, but she caught him by the shoulder and yanked him toward the stairs. I swung the bat, striking her arm. She screamed, not in pain, but in fury, and released him. He hit the floor, gasping. Margaret grabbed the girl, pulling her behind the workbench. "Stay down, stay hidden," she shouted. I realized what I had to do. I couldn't let Leah reach any of them. I had to act. Every piece of Margaret's letters, every secret, every hidden plan she had spent decades protecting, came together in my mind. I lunged at Leah, tackling her against the basement wall. She fought, clawing, kicking, but I held on. We struggled, rolling across the concrete floor, dust and old papers scattering around us. Mike joined me, swinging the bat with precision, hitting her legs to slow her down. The man finally scrambled to his feet and helped hold her, his face pale but determined. Margaret stepped forward, taking the envelope from me. "David, now," she shouted. I tore open the last page, a final note written in Margaret's handwriting. Shaky but firm, "Distract her. Protect them. The key is under the floorboard." I dropped to my knees, finding the loose floorboard Margaret had marked years ago. Inside was a small rusted box. I opened it to find documents, proofs, deeds, contracts, and more. Everything Margaret had hidden from Leah. "Throw it," I shouted to Margaret. She handed the papers to me. I flung them into the shadows of the far corner. Leah's eyes followed the motion, and that was the distraction we needed. She lunged toward the papers. Mike and I tackled her again, holding her down until she could no longer resist. Breathing hard, I stood over her, chest heaving. Margaret hugged the girl tightly. The man, finally free, collapsed against the wall. Exhausted, silence fell over the basement. Finally, Margaret looked at me. "It's over, for now." I shook my head, still trembling. "For now," she nodded. "There are always consequences, always more secrets. But tonight, we survived. And that's what matters." Mike lowered the bat, relief flooding his face. "I can't believe we made it." I sank to the floor, gripping the girl's hand. My heart still pounded, but slowly. A fragile sense of hope settled in. We had faced the lies, the danger, the family secrets, and we had survived. Margaret whispered almost to herself. "I'm sorry, David, for everything. For the secrets, the fear, the lies. I did it to protect you." I reached for her hand. "I know, and now we fix the rest, together." The basement was quiet. The danger passed, for now. But as I looked at my family, Margaret, the girl, the man, and even Mike, I knew one thing with certainty: some truths, once revealed, could never be hidden again. And this night, the night of lies and betrayal, had changed all of us forever. Outside, the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning, because no matter what Leah or anyone else tried to do, we were together, we were alive, and that was worth everything.